And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss 6 years of the Buhari administration with a focus on the economy.
The Buhari administration at inception in 2015 left no one in doubt as to its desire to turn the fortunes of the economy around.
Of course, Nadabo, now improving the economy was one of the major priorities of the administration. The other has been fighting corruption and addressing insecurity. But for an economy that is largely dependent on crude oil production and sales, the fall in global oil price at the time stood as a major impediment to economic growth.
And indeed, Kingsley, the country did slip into recession in 2016, which prompted the drafting of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, ERGP, designed to serve as a buffer and terminate in 2020.
Indeed, Nadabo, now the ERGP was rated to have stimulated macroeconomic stability and economic diversification, especially in agriculture, the digital economy, investments, and critical infrastructure, as well as improvement in the ease of doing business. Now, it also improved social inclusion, particularly through the social investment programs, which were aimed at expanding job creation, youth empowerment, and human capital development.
And not to forget the CBN-sponsored Anko Borrowers program, which boosted rice production significantly and instigated healthy competition among some states in rice production. But again, these efforts at economic growth were truncated by the novel coronavirus pandemic, which took the world by surprise and exposed vulnerabilities in major economies across the globe, not to mention the developing economies.
Well, again, the Buhari administration responded by mapping out the National Economic Sustainability Plan to mitigate the effects of the coronavirus pandemic on Nigerians. The Economic Sustainability Plan, which rolled out SME grants and several economic diversification policies, was acclaimed to have helped Nigeria exit a COVID-19-induced recession faster than expected.
And while the Economic Sustainability Plan came as a buffer, experts are wondering if it is the successor to the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, which, like I mentioned earlier, terminated last year.
Indeed, another economic roadmap is already in the works to provide direction for the nation's economy. Now, the IMF has already made a forecast that Nigeria's economy will grow by some 2.5% this year, but the Buhari administration is targeting an ambitious revenue to GDP ratio of some 15%. But what has been the impact of the various economic interventions by the administration in the last 6 years? And what is the economic outlook for particularly the next 2 years and going forward?
And of course, we shall have a panel of guests who will provide answers in the course of Good Morning Nigeria today. And welcome to the program. I am Yusuf Nadabo Usman.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Nadabo to also welcome you to the program. We're broadcasting live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, and we're right here in our Abuja headquarters studios. The complementary segments of newspaper review and business and others will come in the course of the program. In the meantime, let's join Ifoma Ojinta for the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Ifoma.
Good morning, Kingsley and Nadabo. Here is the morning news. The Republic of Mali has been suspended from all institutions of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. This is part of the resolutions adopted at the end of a one-day extraordinary session of the Authority of Heads of States and Governments of the Sub-Regional Organization. State House correspondent in Musambo reports that the decision followed the recent coup d'etat in the West African nation, which violated the Transition Charter.
I'm thus using this opportunity to reiterate, on behalf of ECOWAS, our continued commitment to the peaceful transition in Mali with the basic goal of restoring democratic government and working for the stability of Mali and of our region. We must critically examine the dynamics of the current situation and make informed decisions.
President Muhammadu Buhari has described as heinous the murder of Adamawa politician Ahmed Gulak in Owerri, Imo State. Reacting to the development on Sunday, the president considers the act as premeditated by evil people who he says are determined to undermine the peace, unity and territorial integrity of the country. President Buhari, who also expressed his deep condolences to the family, friends and associates of the deceased, as well as the people and government of Adamawa State, assures that all resources will be deployed to bring the perpetrators of the acts to justice. And true to that promise, the Imo State Police Command says the killers of Ahmed Gulak have been neutralized. The command's police public relations officer Bala El-Kana in a statement says, following a distress call on the gruesome murder of Ahmed Gulak, police special forces made up of intelligence response team, police mobile force and tactical units from the command were deployed to the scene at Obiang-Ngwo junction at Ngwapala local government area of Imo State with clear instruction to identify and apprehend the perpetrators. Eyewitnesses' account, especially the account given by the driver of the vehicle that was conveying Ahmed Gulak to the airport before the attack, gave a vivid description of the assailants and the vehicles they used in carrying out the attack. The assailants, who were said to have used a Toyota Camry 2005 model with silver color, Toyota Sienna 1998 model with golden color, Toyota Hilux with white color, and a Lexus RX 330 with golden color. The Imo State Police PRO says, having established the identity of the assailant and the description of the vehicles used in carrying out the attack, the teams further got details of the direction the hoodlums went, and with further leads, the team was able to establish the location of the suspects. The suspects were rounded up at Afo Enyogogo Junction in Abombise local government area, where they were distributing confiscated onions believed to have been loaded from the north to locals. The statement further indicates that on citing the police, the hoodlums opened fire on the police team, but the police officer swiftly returned the fire. The 6 hoodlums who carried out the killings and 4 other members of their gang were fatally injured, while 3 out of the 4 vehicles used in attacking Gulak were recovered. The assailants were identified as members of the proscribed IPOB and ESN. Items recovered also include 3 AK-47 rifles, 1 pistol, 5 AK-47 magazines with 92 rounds of live ammunition and criminal charms. Governor Abubakar Sani Bello of Niger State and Chairman North Central Governors Forum has expressed shock over the recent reports of abduction of innocent people by armed bandits in several communities across 3 local government areas of Rafi, Wushishi and Bida in the state. It is reported that armed bandits invaded Tegina community in Rafi local government area, shot 1 person dead and left 1 seriously injured, as well as kidnapped an unconfirmed number of Islamia students and teachers from Salihu Tanko Islamic School, alongside some passengers of a Sharon bus traveling to Mina. A statement issued by the press secretary to the governor, Mary Noel Baje, indicates that the gunmen on about 70 motorcycles attacked 17 communities in Wushishi local government area, where they shot several people, while some women and children drowned as they tried to escape across River Kaduna. The statement added that more than 10 people are reported to be receiving treatment at the Wushishi General Hospital, even as search is still ongoing for many missing persons from Babako, Tashangirji, Kwagi and other neighboring villages attacked by the bandits. Meanwhile, 11 children who were too small and couldn't walk among the kidnapped Islamia students were released by the gunmen, as reports also indicates that the IDPs of Central and Model Primary School, as well as Government Secondary School in Wushishi, are returning back to their communities following return of normalcy. Now, INEC office in Njaba local government area of Imo State has been set ablaze. Although no life was lost, the building was substantially burnt down along with electoral materials and office equipment. The incident, which occurred this Sunday, May 30, 2021, brings to 42 the total number of INEC offices attacked nationwide since 2019. INEC, in a statement by its Commissioner for Information, Festus Okoye, regrets that attacking these offices is not in national interest and has the capacity of compromising electoral activities and credibility of the democratic process. And for an update on COVID-19, 30 new COVID-19 infections have been recorded nationwide within the last 24 hours, bringing the country's total confirmed cases to 166,315. NCDC records show that among the new infections, Lagos has 26, Rivers has 3, and 1 case was recorded in Kwara. Total cases so far discharged, 156,558, while the death toll is now 2,071. And that concludes the morning news. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Nadabo after this break.
Recently, both the president and vice president demonstrated leadership by being among the first Nigerians to have the AstraZeneca vaccine administered to them on live TV for all in the country to see. Subsequently, many federal ministers, political leaders, and members of the Presidential COVID-19 Task Force have publicly taken the vaccine to follow in the footsteps of President Buhari and Vice President Oshibaja. To obtain it yourself, please go to the NPHCDA website. There is a link to click on in order to register and schedule your vaccination. In the meantime, please continue to wear face masks, wash your hands frequently, use hand sanitizer, and observe social distancing. This message was brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The Honorable Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami, FNCS, FBCS, FIIM, cordially invites the general public to the virtual launching of the National Policy on Virtual Engagements in the Public Service and the virtual commissioning of 4 digital economy projects for a digital Nigeria. These are the Emergency Communications Center, Akure, Ondo State, Digital Economy Center, Delta State University, Abraka, Delta State, Digital Economy Center, Government Secondary School, Rigasa, Kaduna State, and construction of Digital Economy Center, Federal University, Gashua, Yobe State. The program is scheduled to hold as follows.
Monday, 31st May, 2021.
Time 11 a.m. Venue Microsoft Teams. Announcer Dr. Noyen Wachuku, Acting Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy.
Here today, gone tomorrow. Cause you're volatile like the water. And you promise what you don't know. Sometimes it's right and then it's so wrong. Them go do like say them why. We promise you the world. My brother all now worship. Up all on no be open eye. I see no be water. Khaki no be letter.
Airtel, the smartphone network. Revision classes on television for students in secondary schools in English and mathematics will commence on the NTA. The revision classes will transmit Mondays to Fridays from 5 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. on the network service of the NTA. This is organized in preparation for the various national examinations and orders. This is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Education. the counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Well, it's Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Next is business news with Kunle Adeye.
The central bank at its last monetary policy committee meeting retained the monetary policy rate and all parameters to support the fragile economic recovery and propel productivity. Moderate recovery has been recorded as the non-oil sector drove the GDP growth in the first quarter of 2021, with the agricultural sector contributing the largest. A capital market expert, Uche Uwaleke, said the Monetary Policy Committee of the CBN has taken the right decision.
It was an attempt to balance the major twin challenge, that is facing the economy at present. What do you do in this circumstance? Do you raise the MPR? Do you raise policy parameters? Of course, that will end up rolling back some of the progress we've made in the area of, growth. The signal it sends out there is that of, consistency, that of stability, that of certainty. Okay, as opposed to a situation where you find a central bank, continuously tinkering with the rates. Okay, of course, that will signal, put a lot of uncertainty, in the system.
He emphasized that subsequent decisions will still tilt towards strengthening the economy. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeye.
Thank you, Kunle Adeye, for the business package. Coming up next for us is newspaper review.
Well, it's Good Morning Nigeria's newspaper review segment now, but unfortunately, Kunle is not in today. So, Kinsley, we have two papers. Bayo is not around today, Bayo Atoyebi, that is. Kinsley, you have the Punch?
Yes, I have the Punch. You have the Daily Trust. But the lead story of the trust which you have obviously captures one of the major stories over the weekend. So maybe we'll begin with Daily Trust.
That's Gulak's assassination, that is. Let's start with that and then see how far we can go. And under the masthead, right below, we have, can we have a place? We have 3 stories there. We have sit-at-home order, fear, anxiety in Saudis. You get the details of that on page 8. And then we have 12 killed in fresh Benue attack, that is, page 7. The main story, as we said earlier, is about Gulak's assassination. Ahmed Gulak, that is, who was assassinated in Owerri yesterday. And then the writers, police killed 6 IPOB members over attack, and Southeast governors demand probe. The other writer is ex-presidential aide buried in Abuja. And then the last writer for that is Buhari, Jonathan, ACF, Mona. And you get details of this on page 6. And the pictures there, you can see. is the funeral prayers on late Ahmed Gulak at the National Mosque, which took place yesterday evening. And then the vehicles, allegedly vehicles belonging to the suspected killers of Ahmed Gulak, intercepted by police in Imo State. They look burnt anyway, but the story, the details of those can be gotten on page 5 and 6. And still on the Daily Trust, we have many students abducted as bandits attack Islamia school in Niger State on page 12, details. On page 34, Pro-Buhari representative suspended from APC. And on page 34 again, 2023, Middle Belt Southern leaders ask APC, PDP to zone presidential ticket to the south. On page 18, 41% of family businesses will decline this year, according to PwC, that's PricewaterhouseCoopers. Kinsley?
Well, just before we take the other headlines, Nadabo, from the Punch newspaper, perhaps we focus on the assassination of Ahmed Gulak, who at some point in his political career was political advisor to former President Goodluck Jonathan. He served in that administration until sometime in 2014 when he was relieved of his appointment. But he remained in the People's Democratic Party. And I recall that, of course, he was from time to time a guest on Good Morning Nigeria. Yes, we had him here on Good Morning Nigeria, especially after the 2015 elections, when the PDP lost. I mean, he sought to explain at the time what happened, how the PDP shot itself in the foot. But as I said, he remained in the People's Democratic Party. And when the PDP was also having its leadership crisis, especially as to who was to be the rightful chairman of the People's Democratic Party, there was this contestation between the former governor of Borno State, that's Modu Sharif. He also put himself forward, that's Ahmed Gulak, as a potential chairman of the party. But of course, at some point, he now ditched the PDP and then went over to the All Progressives Congress, which is the party that he was a member of until his unfortunate assassination yesterday morning in Owerri. That's the Imo State capital. He was also involved, if you recall, Nadabo, in the conduct of the primaries for the governorship election in Imo State.
Right.
There was a lot of drama around those primaries at the time. Who was the rightful candidate of the party who emerged? There were some stories that he and some members of the screening team, or rather of the primaries committee of the APC, were said to have been kidnapped. And there were claims that they were offered $2 million, but of course they stood their ground. And so there was a lot of confusion as to who was the rightful candidate. Ultimately, the matter got resolved, and then, of course, went on to the Supreme Court, which decided ultimately that the incumbent Hope Uzodimma is the governor.
And really, before then, Kinsley, he was in Adamawa State, I think Gongola State, then as a speaker of the Adamawa State House of Assembly.
That's right.
And of course, that was what propelled him into politics, really, and then became a national figure, that is, and he became a very central figure, really, in politics of Adamawa and indeed Nigeria, looking at his exploits in that very area. And of course, it's a great loss. Back home, people are mourning and really feeling terribly bad about that since yesterday, today, and for days to come, really, and even for years to come, because Ahmed Gulak, it's a very strong politician, very, warm person, as such, a person that loves so many people. When you go back home, in his hometown, the Gulak is his hometown.
That's right.
That's the name of his hometown,
That's
really.
Right.
And his Margiba tribe, really. And of course, back home, he really, commands respect. And we just have to really grieve a lot and then say, may his soul rest in peace, Kinsley.
That's right. There's no question about that. Ahmed Gulak, he was a very forceful personality. Yeah. He was also very forthright. I mean, he didn't mince words. As the saying goes, he shot straight from the hips. But again, this is just one other senseless killing that we are witnessing in Nigeria. Well, the police have issued a statement, and we of course read that in part of our bulletin, that the attackers of Ahmed Gulak have themselves also been neutralized. But these are hoodlums. The lives of 1,000 hoodlums cannot compensate for the life one single influential individual. No. Well, it is useful that the police, of course, acted promptly in this particular. Some of the earlier statements that came out seemed slightly confusing, as to the time he left the hotel and he was heading to the airport, allegedly taking irregular routes, and of course, you know that the southeast at the moment. It's a cauldron. It's a steamy cauldron.
And even Owerri itself, looking at Owerri, it's more or less like the center where this...
It's a war zone.
It's a war zone thereabouts. So,
it's a war zone.
I mean, when he entered, we're told he entered Owerri, he didn't even notify, a lot of people as such because of how precarious the situation is. And he sneaked in and then got whatever he really wanted to do. And sneaked out, always trying to sneak out too before he met his death. That was really unfortunate.
Most unfortunate. Yeah. As you said, Honorable, may his soul rest in peace. It is not just sufficient now, I believe, to say that they have neutralized the attackers of Gulag. There was one gory video that was circulated yesterday on the social media. I mean, you could see his body spread eagled on the road. I thought that was distasteful to be sharing at this material time. May his soul rest in peace. But assuming there were sponsors behind those assailants, investigations should also proceed to get them reined in. But the senseless killings and destruction of public assets must stop.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Unfortunately, again, there was another abduction, this time in Niger State.
Niger
we just
State,
read
yes.
that. We also had it in our bulletin. Bandits or kidnappers raided Tegina, where they picked up some pupils at an Islamia school. Well, this is some cruel humor, as it were. The kidnappers, sensing that 11 of their captives could not walk, they decided to have mercy on them and then release them. But of course, the others remain with them in captivity. This was obviously, I was thinking that one of the stories that we will be discussing this morning will be the release of the remaining students and staff of Greenfield University who were abducted in April and spent about 40 days with the kidnappers in Kaduna State. It's been a happy ending, but it's been a costly one according to the parents, as well as relatives of those who have been released. There are all kinds of claims. Some said they paid 150 million naira. Another account said they paid 180 million naira in various tranches to the kidnappers before the students and workers were released. In addition, they said they also purchased and handed over 10 brand new motorcycles to the kidnappers, bandits.
And that's not forgetting about those that were killed, those the kidnappers killed before the release.
That's right.
There were 2 or 3 that were killed earlier on. Five were killed earlier on. Then here we are. Money is being given to the bandits, and of course, allegedly, some motorcycles, as you said, have been given to the bandits. Now, the investigations are very key here, Kinsley. Where have we gone to? I mean, since when this thing started, when they were abducted and all these abductions and the rest of them, we have not really gotten any information about the investigation being carried on. Is it still on? Have people been apprehended? What really happened? Nobody's sharing anything.
What are we doing with ICT? That's to say, what use are we putting? Technology and all kinds of facilities that are available today. It's curious now because the Greenfield parents and guardians bought 10 motorcycles in addition to the monies they released. The week, I think it must have been a week or 2 ago now, a Sharia judge was also abducted in Katsina. Now there is a report that the kidnappers are demanding not only just a ransom, but also demanding for brand new motorcycles and Android phones.
That's a big question. I don't want to call it a $1 million question, $1 million naira question per se, but really the ICT thing, Kinsley, is one thing to look at. I don't know what you're doing, because if vehicles can be tracked, right? I mean, why can't bandits be tracked? Because they use these, telephones and then GSMs and the rest of them. And why can't they be tracked? The questions have been there on the lips of so many Nigerians, Kinsley, and I think answers are yet to be found to date.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's quickly take some other headlines from the Punch newspaper. That's the window page of the Punch. Above the nameplate says rising debt service cost weighing on federal government's revenue. That's according to PricewaterhouseCoopers. Details can be found on page 23. AMCON drags 3,000 defaulters to court over 5 trillion naira debt. Again, that's the story we just discussed. Abductors invade Niger school, 200 students kidnapped, 1 killed. And 119 passengers from high-risk countries refuse isolation. This according to Lagos. Nadabo. Well, this is a story that ordinarily should test the resolve of the Presidential Committee on COVID-19 and indeed the federal government, because part of what was indicated some weeks ago when information started coming out that Turkey, Brazil, and in particular India had now become high-risk countries, the protocol was set out as to what should happen to persons, or Nigerians in particular, or residents who were returning from those countries. Now, the Presidential Committee has published a list of those persons who have tried to evade the protocol. And here Lagos is saying 119 passengers from high-risk countries refuse isolation. Well, this is an offense. There is nothing there's not, as Nigerians would say, you don't have to treat them with kid gloves, because the passengers are potentially a hazard to public health.
And that's the third funny story about this COVID-19 thing recently. You know, when the first batch came in, we said they disappeared into the thin air, they could not be found. That's right. And another set came in too, and same story went by. And here we are with some who are coming in and then saying they refuse to be isolated. I mean, why is the law there for? Why is the law? If the law should take its course, I think nobody should be above the law, given the fact that these are issues that affect the generality of people. And of course, Nigerians are really at a precarious situation, especially about COVID-19. And looking at what happened in India, just look at the second wave, the spark of danger and the rest of them in that country. It was a result of some wedding which they went to. And then it was protocols were not followed. And right. After that, the whole thing just went haywire.
It just became a catastrophe. To such an extent that a number of idol worshippers, were discarding, destroying their idols and saying, look, these idols couldn't save us. And then, of course, they threw them into the rivers. But more worrisome, anyone who saw the bodies that were floating in the rivers in India would say, look, this is some real danger. And there's also the duty on the part of the relatives or friends or associates of persons who have recently returned from these high-risk countries and are evading either isolation or self-reporting to the authorities.
Why even evade in the first place?
Absolutely.
Why evade? That's the law.
We have said that coronavirus, and the experts have amplified this, is not a social disease. It is not something for you to be ashamed of, to say you have corona. Nigeria has lost well over 2,000 persons to COVID-19. And so why then do you want to endanger the health of other members of the public?
It's just
all right, so very quickly, Nadabo, let's take the lead story from the Punch. It says, States bank on PPP projects as cash crunch bites harder. States afraid of negative effect of mass retrenchment on 2023 political agenda. Here they are shying away from adopting the El Rufai solution in Kaduna. We are doing PPP already. Some projects are financed by World Bank, says Ekiti. We'll fish out ghost workers, Bauchi. We are cutting down overheads, says Enugu. And NDLEA busts Abuja drug syndicates, arrest 10, and 107 kg drug seized. You have other headlines there. It says 15 Abuja varsity final year students and 31 others expelled for misconduct. Atiku and others hailed Fintiri over Northeast First Overhead Bridge. Details of Nadabo, you are chuckling. Maybe you tell us why this is such a landmark achievement, overhead bridge in the Northeast. Details on page 32. Hisbah destroys 260 cartons of alcoholic drinks in Bauchi, and suspected herdsmen raid Ebonyi, Benue, and Enugu communities, killed 46. Gunmen abduct Nasarawa lawmaker taken to Kaduna forest. That's page 8. ACF worried over Benue endless killings. False cover-up. So, Nadabo, tell us, what is so unique about the first overhead bridge in the Northeast?
Well, I don't want to look at it from that point of view. I just want to look at it from why it was constructed. even the fact that it's strategically constructed at one area that is highly congested. The market is there, and then of course there are filling stations, there are schools, and it's a business area. So before the construction of the flyover Kingsley, it was really a congested area. Gridlocks have been there for long when you enter, especially anytime from 4, 5 when markets are closing to around 6, 7. It's
Rush
really
hour.
terrible. Rush hour.
Rush hour.
And with this, I know the traffic will be eased now because those coming from the market area can just go down the bridge and then take their road. And of course, those coming from the airport and coming from the bank road can find their way as easily as possible into wherever they want to go. So it's a strategic, project that really deserves commendation from all Adamawa people and indeed from people living in Jamaica.
Yeah, so this overhead bridge is in Yola, the capital of Adamawa State.
Yeah, sure.
Where the headline gives the impression that it's a prestige project. When the headline says that Atiku orders hail Fintiri over Northeast First Overhead Bridge. From your explanation, the bridge has a strategic and utilitarian purpose.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that's it for newspaper review. Unless you have other headlines for us to take a
No,
look
not
at
really. At least
very
you can
quickly.
round up, yeah.
Kidnapping incidents are still rife. We do hope that something gets to be done. All right. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We're live on NTA's network service. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with the economy in 6 years of the Buhari administration and what to expect next.
Dialogue, empathy, love, and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
Big day ahead.
Full of nourishment and vitality. Antibodies and sharp minds. Ovaltine 3 in 1. Ovaltine 3 in 1.
For your young mama.
New Ovaltine 3 in 1. Smart choice for smart kids.
I'm City Hawks. Let's go, guys.
Babe.
Yeah.
Would you please turn on your hotspot?
Okay, there you go. My lady. Play this ball. Hey, hold this guy down.
Password, please.
0808.
Baby girl, you are 1 in a million. Babe.
Yeah.
You have a message.
From who?
Do maybe.
Read it out now. Read it out to my ears.
Free your mind with Airtel Smart Talk and enjoy calls to all networks at a flat rate of 11 kobo per second. Dial *315# to join.
Fine girl. Can I have your phone, man?
Airtel, the smartphone network.
When times are tough, we know that as a mother, one thing you should never compromise on is your family's oral health, because they deserve the best. Oral-B, all-round protection. It's great value. It protects your mouth from harmful bacteria and also protects you against tooth holes and gum problems which can lead to tooth loss. It strengthens your family's teeth and gives them all-round protection. So remember, protect their future. Oral-B for healthier, stronger teeth in just 1 week.
Life can be very eventful. We curiously expect things to happen, even when we don't know what. Our human nature makes us like and repost lots of information. Some are unverified, inciting anger and hate. Sometimes innocently, other times the urge to break it first. This, in most cases, has caused destruction in many nations.
preaches peace. My culture preaches peace. My culture preaches peace. 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 My culture preaches peace.
Even our religion
Preaches peace.
if our culture preaches peace, remember your culture. Use your voter's card. Vote peacefully
And wisely. We are one.
This message is from the National Council for Arts and Culture.
It's still a Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. To begin our conversation, which is on the economy in 6 years of the Buhari administration, let's take this background report put together by Abdulsalam Jubril.
The Nigerian economy is heavily dependent on oil revenues, a trend President Muhammadu Buhari was desperate to overturn when he was sworn in 6 years ago. Little wonder the president listed the three major priorities of his administration to be addressing insecurity, fighting corruption, and improving the economy. As a result, the president began an economic diversification agenda by leveraging on agriculture. Through the Anchor Borers program, more than 300 billion naira has been made to 3 million farmers of 21 different farm produce. This gave rise over time to the rice revolution that made Nigeria make relative progress towards attaining self-sufficiency in rice production. The Presidential Fertilizer Initiative, launched in 2016, continues to deliver significant quantities of affordable and high-quality fertilizers to farmers nationwide, and the number of blending plants has increased from 3 at inception to 44. In 2016, however, the slump in crude oil prices led to the country slip into a recession in the second quarter, maintaining negative growth in all quarters of that year. In reaction to this negative growth, the Buhari administration developed the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan (ERGP), a medium-term plan for 2017 to 2020 to restore the country's economic growth. The ERGP tackled some of the challenges facing the economy by narrowing the parallel market premium, improving tax administration, anti-corruption efforts, and also the business environment. These efforts helped to steer the country out of recession by 2017. Also, towards cushioning the effects of the recession, the Buhari administration in 2016 launched the National Social Investment Program, the largest of such in Africa. Since exiting the recession, the country has witnessed 11 quarters of consecutive GDP growth. The GDP grew from 1.91% in 2018 to 2.27% in 2019. However, it declined to 1.87% in the first quarter of 2020 as a result of the decline in global economic activities due to COVID-19. In March 2020, though, the National Economic Sustainability Plan (ESP) was produced in response to the COVID-19 crisis, and the ESP is acclaimed to have helped Nigeria exit the COVID-induced recession faster than expected. As a result of the president's diversification policy, growth in agriculture and telecommunications, which are non-oil sectors, have been identified as major contributors to the country's GDP. What impact have these and other interventions made on the economy and the common man, and what is the economic outlook for Nigeria?
Many thanks, Abdulsalam Jibril, for that very elaborate backgrounder. We have 3 guests with us to discuss this issue. First, joining us via Zoom is the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Hajia Zainab Ahmed. Honorable Minister, delighted to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, everyone.
Also here with us in the studio, we would like to welcome the Deputy Chief Whip of the Senate, distinguished Senator Sabi Abdullahi. Distinguished Senator in the in the 8th Assembly, which was the first term of the Buhari administration, was the spokesperson of the Senate on a number of occasions while the country was experiencing economic recession. He was a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, indicating the various measures the National Assembly was taking at the time in conjunction with the executive branch to get the economy refloated. Senator Sabi Abdullah, delighted to have you again this morning.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Nigeria.
And also joining us in the studio here is Professor Ken Ife, a development economist. He's also right here with us in the studio. Professor, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's begin with the Honorable Minister of Finance, Hajia Zainab. Well, of course, you've been around in the 6 years of the Buhari administration, and in recent years, you've been fully in charge of handling the finance and national planning portfolio. Tell us, from your own perspective, what have been the high points and the low points in the management of our economy?
Thank you very much, sir. President Muhammadu Buhari came into governance committing to Nigerians 3 major aspects. First of all, his commitment was he was going to ensure the security and welfare of citizens. Secondly, he was going to grow the economy. And thirdly, he was going to fight corruption. So on all of those 3 aspects, significant progress has been made, except for lately where security has had some setback. But from all that has been done so far, it's geared to revert back onto the path of progress in terms of security. In terms of the economy, during the first tenure of the president, we were faced with the economic crisis in terms of the crash of the crude oil price, and that saw us going into recession in 2016. But after 4 quarters, the economy came out of recession and has been growing consistently for 12 consecutive quarters until COVID-19 happened. So COVID-19, the swan of the century, the event that you just project but is supposed never to happen, actually happened to the world. The whole of the global economy was in shock. Nigeria was not exempted. Mr. President took very swift measures to contain the health pandemic and also to steer the course of the economy so that the impact of the economy that we saw was going to be negative was very much mitigated. In the process of doing that, we set up the economic sustainability plan. Supported by the parliament, we have also been able to revert our budget year to January to December, been able to grow the size of the budget consistently, expanding government spending into the economy and therefore helping to replete the economy, put in place the National Social Investment Program that is one of the fastest growing social support programs in the world today, touching the lives of as much as almost 10 million people in various aspects, children being fed in schools, So these programs have had significant impact. On the side of the macroeconomic planning, we had committed to grow the economy to 7% when we did the ERGP. Unfortunately, because of the first recession and the second recession, that has been a setback. But in 2020, we face our second major recession due to the twin shocks of the pandemic as well as the crash in the crude oil price. This recession, thankfully, was short-lived. We exited within 1 quarter. Now we're on the path of growth again. We have had 1 positive growth in 2020, Q4 2020, and a second positive growth in the first quarter of 2021. This means that all the actions that are being taken are the right ones because the growth trajectory is a positive one and is showing the economy growing on a consistent basis. We also are the first to agree that the growth rate is slow, that it needs to be fast-tracked, and that's why every hand has to be on deck to be able to enhance this growth. As a result of the crash of the global economy last year, we have had to borrow more than we planned to borrow. And this borrowing means we will subsequently be under stress in terms of debt service. So the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning looked inwards and designed the Strategic Revenue Growth Initiative, which is an initiative that has lined up a suite of actions and programs that need to be taken to ensure that the revenues that we generate within the country from taxes, from other categories of revenues, grow on a consistent basis. As a result of the SRGI, we have been able to, one of the commitments with the Corporation of National Assembly is to revert the budget year to January to December, but we also have been able to do 2 finance bills that are meant to provide correct our fiscal laws, the various fiscal laws that we have, but also provide incentives on an incremental basis and helping us to actualize the targets and the focus of the plans as well as the national budget. It's been tough, but it's also been very beneficial. Mr. President has been very supportive. He gives us directives and the authority and the free hand to actually implement programs and projects. One of the programs that I have been leading is, and then I'll move into infrastructure from this, is the implementation of the Executive Order number 007. This is an executive order that we had put in place in the strategic implementation plan, and thankfully Mr. President approved it. It's an investment focused executive order. So the order gives investors within the Nigerian investment space to be able to use their funds to build roads and recover their investments over time from future taxes. This executive order that gives investors opportunity to build roads is growing very much in terms of interest. We have had a number of investors that have already uptaken some major roads. One of them is the Apapa road leading to the wharf in Lagos that is being built by Dangote. There's also the Bonibodo road that is being built by Julius Berger with NLNG as the contracting party. There are a number of roads that have been approved and have been lined up. There's the Abuja road that has also been completed under the same scheme. So when these roads are going on, contractors now invoice, show us the milestones that have been completed. They're inspected, they're validated, and then we now authorize FIRS to issue tax credit that acts as a tax relief to the company. But we made sure that there are limitations, that you cannot ask for relief more than 50% of your taxable income in any particular year. There are a number of very interesting initiatives that we have also put in place to enhance Mr. President's commitment to the fight against corruption. In the ministry, we have been implementing the IPPIs, the Government Integrated Financial Management System, GIFMIS. We've also put in place Project Lighthouse, which is a project that enables us warehouse the debt stock of to government. That is what government is being owed. And we're able to now track companies that are owing government and are at the same time working for government and getting paid and being able to recover government's money through this process. We've been able to put together data from FIRS, customs, CAC, BVN data, immigration data. We put several pockets of data together to enable us trace taxpayers that are not paying their full taxes or in fact are underpaying taxes. So for example, you see a company being compliant with their company income tax, but then you check on the directors of those companies, they're not paying their taxes. So we're able to trace, and we've seen interest from states. Some states have submitted to us their land registry data, and they're able to now use our platform to be able to identify taxpayers that are not compliant in paying their taxes. The ESP is on course. We have done a lot of work in 2020 and it's continuing in 2021. The mass housing project has just gotten a boost by the completion of the 200 billion facility from CBN that is guaranteed by the Ministry of Finance. So the guarantee process took a long time. It means now this project can take off, that there will be 200,000 houses that can be built across the country. States have been cooperating. They've given us several pockets of land to do this building. The target is to get small contractors that will be given like 50 units of low-cost houses to build. We are targeting younger people. We're targeting making sure that within the estates where the houses will be built, that almost all of the works will be done in terms of direct labor, but also using local raw materials. So that's the emphasis for us, is to the use of local raw materials. So you'll have on those sites welders, carpenters, building doors, people making blocks in the same site. And then you'll have a project manager company that will be supervising on a site-by-site basis. So it's been interesting, it's been difficult, but also we've had a lot of cooperation from the National Assembly, and that has been extremely useful.
Honorable Minister, we thank you so much for that opening, remarks, and I think you've touched almost every aspect of the economy. But one area you didn't really talk so much about is the TSA, which came at a time when Nigeria really needed something like that, 2016, 2017. It's been on the drawing board by subsequent administrations, but at least Buhari came on board and then implemented it. And we really had some positive results at the beginning, even in addition to, the improvements that were made by the police and the rest of them. You still made some money out of that and then saved the government a lot. So far, how far? TSA, Hajia Zainab.
TSA, apologies, that's a major one that I should have mentioned and it has been the major driver in terms of the fight against corruption, because we're able to see through a single pipeline all of government's revenue. So there is a fiscal relief aspect of that, because we now have the aggregated balances of government to act as a guarantee to any overdrafts that we have to commit to. And it's also enabling us to see what each agency is generating and what they're spending. And lately, it has enabled us to go into agencies' accounts that have refused to remit their operating surplus and actually take the operating surplus as according to the percentage that is allowed by law and also according to what they have budgeted. And then during the end of the year, when their accounts are audited, we now sit down and reconcile and adjust whichever way the equation goes. So the TSA has been very well implemented. We've received a lot of commendations. We have one African country that has come to understudy what we've done, and they've started implementing Gambia, and we're supporting them. We also have two others that are, including Ethiopia, that are looking at coming to do the same thing. So it's been well commended, and it's one of the most important tools of the within the finance space that we have used in the last century.
All right. Honorable Minister, thank you very much. We're going to have to pause you in the meantime, but we'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's bring in now distinguished Senator Sabi Abdullahi. Senator, what's been your assessment? I mean, you and your colleagues have also been involved in some way from the legislative side in the management of the economy. What's your feeling at this time on the 6th anniversary?
Well, thank you very much for having me, and good morning, Nigerians. Let me say that the opening statements by the minister is quite remarkable in the sense that it has touched on those very fundamental pillars of what has been happening between the executive and the legislature. For example, when the first recession came on board in 2016, we had a robust debate in the Senate then, and of course we came up with about 22 areas of suggestions to the executive. And I recalled by 2017, when Mr. President came to present his budget, he acknowledged that those 22 recommendations did help the thinking in the executive, which actually was the basis of how we're able to quickly get out of recession. And I remember one of the key areas that we noticed at that time was there was no handshake between the fiscal and the micro. And so within that context, we felt that, look, we just have to tell the executive, you can't be doing something outside and those who are inside do not understand what is happening. There must be somehow, we must get a communication. And I think from what she has said, they really took it on board, and they were able to actually bring the two sides together, which has clearly helped in their management of the economy. Now, the other point I would like to say is we're equally worried about the issue of unemployment, the issue of poverty at that time. And we felt there should be some intervention. And I think that was what led to the issue of the social intervention programs and the subsequent review. Because I remember the first time this thing started, the National Assembly was very critical. And they were critical because we felt if you are doing a social intervention program, your key guiding principle should be how well you target it. It must be well targeted. So the targeting was faulty, and I think you can see an improvement in terms of the targeting, even from the bouquet of the types of intervention in that particular scheme. So for us in the National Assembly, at all times, we believe we have a duty, and anytime we see that challenge, we go back to chamber, deliberate it seriously, come out with some package of recommendation, and we take it on. Now, the other aspect is, as much as we believe there are a lot of projects that should be executed, we asked ourselves, what is our revenue side? The revenue side and the expenditure side must always try to speak to each other. And I think arising from that, the National Assembly was concerned about the issue of, the payment into the consolidated revenue accounts. And I think on that note, even as we speak, there is a committee that is actually looking into that. And we realize that a lot of the MDAs are actually going beyond their operating, they're eating into the operating surplus. And we believe we just have to do justice to that. And I think the committee is still working, so I wouldn't want to say, much here, but I know they are working, and they've discovered so many things. We are seeing the loopholes, all the leakages, and the intendment here is for us at the end of the day to block those leakages, because we are convinced beyond reasonable that if we're able to do that, then even our level of borrowing can actually come down. The deficit in our budget can actually come down. So this much we are doing. And let me also say that within that context, some of the bills that we actually worked on, you remember the production sharing contract, the offshore bill, was one bill that has refused to see the light of the day. And immediately we came in this night assembly, that was the very first thing we said we must achieve. And we achieved that, and Mr. President signed that. So increasing the potential of our revenue generation. Now, the other aspect too that we actually dealt with is what the minister talked about, the finance bill, because we saw that the various, laws that are governing our financial sector seems to be either in conflict or they are actually one law is actually dragging another law. So we decided to bring all of them together with a view to doing justice to that, and I think that bill has been signed also. And we have promised ourselves that there is no law that is static. And so this idea of allowing the law to remain sitting without looking at it, with respect to the finance bill, we have promised ourselves as the economy is dynamically changing, we must actually look at the provisions that will support it. Now, the other aspect we should remember is small and medium enterprises are the drivers of every economy. And in Nigeria, we have quite a very large pool of them. However, the attention to them is a little bit shaky, and we decided, look, the ease of doing business, many people want to do business in Nigeria, is becoming a problem. So we flagged off that, identify in the 8th Assembly, for example, I remember about 53 laws or 54 that were identified, and we prioritized it into high priority, medium priority, and low priority, and we started working on them. And I want to say that as much as I don't have the specific events that has happened to these laws, one thing I know is we passed many of them, like the credit bureau, which has now helped, like the minister is saying. Some people are collecting debt here. they close that account, go to another bank. All of these things is no longer going to happen. It's not happening again because of the credit bureau. The moment you want to go somewhere in the financial sector to borrow, if you are a debtor somewhere, it will be flagged off. For you to get another debt, go and settle your debt.
Collateral register.
Yes. So some of these things are interventions that the National Assembly felt we have to do. And of course, like we can see, despite all the challenges, especially the aspect of insecurity, I think if you look at startups in Africa, Nigeria is still the preferred destination. The data supports that. As at the last statistics I saw, I think about 307 million US dollar was what was attracted by startups in Nigeria, as against, I think Kenya has 305, and even South Africa is just about 280 something. So to me, I think I agree with the minister. And by the way, she's been very, she's a workaholic. And like you said, she's been working very well with the National Assembly, because this is what we have to do if we have to solve a problem. Otherwise, the rate at which we're able to work to get the country out of recession wouldn't have happened if we start bickering over nothing. And to those people who always think that the National Assembly is a rubber stamp, I think that is their own definition. Yet, whatever we see that is not good, as far as we are concerned, we bring it out. Right now, as we speak, our various committees are looking at what the MDAs are doing. And like I said, with respect to the issue of payments of revenue into the consolidated revenue account, just wait when the committee finishes its work. Okay. You will definitely get a lot of revelation. And the idea is not just the revelation, but the actions that we're going to take to fix those leakages. That is what is important to us.
Okay, that's really great. That's some good news, really. We shall be waiting for the committee to finish up its assignment. Professor Ken, 2 recessions in 4 years, coronavirus pandemic. That speaks about Nigerian economy being managed and rather managing to exist, I would say, like maybe 1 day at a time, if one would use that phrase, given these, negatives that affected the economy in this area. 6 years going, and looking at, Buhari's, promise to turn the economy around, diversify it, make it a robust one that will be, the envy of many nations in Africa and the world. What's your assessment, 6 years?
Well, let me begin by actually commending the minister for the, she's very modest, because I know they've done more than what she has tried, very, very modest. But I have to commend her, because as a minister of the economy, she showed exceptional leadership in working very closely with the National Assembly. And that is a distinguishing feature. Look at 1999 and all, it was a battle about changing Senate presidents. The second one was about a situation of mutual distrust. In fact, in the first administration of the president, of Mr. President, you know what happened? We had a dysfunctional National Assembly that didn't allow the budget to work. The budget cycle was decimated. You never spent more than 6 months of any budget. So it was a show of shame. But look at this second term. We have an active and proactive relationship between the executive and the National Assembly. And you could hear our colleague reeling out things that they are doing, not even waiting to be prompted. Their program of work showing great sensitivity and reaction to the matters before the package. So I commend both houses. But first of all, there are 3 things that strike me about how we have managed the economy. One is that, if you remember when we had the first recession, we ran to development partners and they said, look, give us a plan. And until you have a plan, nothing happens. And we produce economic recovery and growth plan. And every MDA had marching orders on what they have to achieve. And with that plan, we quickly exited recession, though it took 3 quarters or more, 4. Then the second wave, we quickly had a plan, economic sustainability plan, and the monetary authorities came with a plan. And because you work with a plan and specific target, is a point of mobilization of resources. And that you could see how we quickly exited. Just one term. Now, the third thing is the alignment and coordination between monetary and fiscal policy authorities. And this is something I've always spoken to the minister about, and she listens and she does her best. If you see how coordinated both policy frameworks are, that one enriches the other. You see the quantitative fiscal and monetary policy response to COVID-19. We have 2.3 trillion rolling out on the economic sustainability plan. You have over 3.5 trillion from the from CBF for monetary policy. So and then you see the targeting, the order of targeting. Not only that you have social intervention fund there protecting the weakest in our economy, but you also had targeted injection to the demand side of the economy. Because one thing is to put so much resources in promoting growth and productivity, and then there's no power to buy. So with that, you see a balance, and we quickly exited. And so it's got these three things lined up, working together. But let me come to the area where you see, most people forget the context. When you want to compare things, compare like to like, and then identify the context. First of all, for many, many decades, the problem facing us in agriculture is that whilst we are the biggest producer of food in Africa, and then one of the 5 in the country, in the world, as according to FAO, 30 to 70% of what we produce never make it into the food chain. The production system that we inherited up until a few years ago has been a subsistence agricultural system, too antiquated and without flow of investment. Now you have an Anchor Borrowers program that changed all that, transformed our subsistence farmers to commercial farmers in a well-organized and orchestrated value chain approach, where from 10 to more value chains, but you now have all these people having access to finance, over 4 million of them, without having to find a collateral. They just brought in technology, biometric bank verification technology, and then geo-mapping of their so-called 1 hectare, 1 man, 1 hectare, and you have a diffusion of fund. And then it's not just giving them money, but organized in such a way that there is an end-to-end intervention. You have anchors that could be exporters or processors or whatever that aggregate the produce. And then make sure that what they are getting to plant, the planting materials, are standard hybrid seeds that improve yield and productivity. They're getting fertilizers of correct quality to the land where they are. They're getting herbicides, insecticides, and fungicides, and they have extension support. And then you have land clearing, you have mechanization of services. It's unbelievable. And then, of course, you have de-risking of the agriculture. So you now have an organized system, a production system that integrates those your subsistence farmers who are now commercial farmers into national and global supply chain. I mean, we haven't seen this, for goodness sake. And we hear so many revolutions, green revolution, all that, but we haven't seen a fundamental restructure of our agricultural production system. Now you come to infrastructure. Now, the story about infrastructure is, if you look at our vision, there are 2 visions of Nigeria, apart from 2020 that's gone. One says that by 2030, our GDP will be 1.64 trillion, and that's PwC. The second one says by 2050, it will be $6.4 trillion. Now, how can you rise from $450 billion to 1.6 in 9 years? I can't see the pathway. The pathway is infrastructure. For goodness sake, nobody comes to you if you don't invest in infrastructure. Even your businesses can't expand if you don't invest in infrastructure. Infrastructure, according to many surveys, I mean, including, of course, the Manufacturers Association, 20% are transportation costs, 30% is energy costs, name it. And then you have communication, multimodal investment in communication. You have rail. The last investment in rail was 1927. But look at the rail network, look at the resources going out to rail, to build rail. Rail is the cheapest, most effective way of long-distance transportation of heavy goods. Now, the roads, the administration didn't come in to cancel all the contracts, get locked into disputes and arbitration, and use money we don't have to settle contractors and then award new contracts. They went for go and do the work that you have been awarded. And it's all about fulfilling. That's why you have Instead of abandoned roads, workers in all the you have every highway, you have some work going on in every highway. We haven't got there yet. But the spirit and the action shows that we are determined to conserve resources and then build the opportunity for investors to come in, both domestic investors and all of that. But then, why I say that the minister was modest is that if you look at that infrastructure, we have solution. Because the government has put 1 trillion on setting up infrastructure company, PLC, which will hope to go to market to raise up to 15 trillion naira and then take away much of that burden of infrastructure development across the country from federal government so that you can concentrate on other areas like social inclusion areas and education and manpower development. And then they will run with those and get more PPPs in. And it will be a different story. And I've talked about that because I've talked about infrastructure. The ease of doing business means that we are making, as much effort as possible in extremely difficult circumstances to make the environment, business environment, more acceptable and more enabling. And you've seen that. Look at what happened in CCAC. It's unbelievable. CAC has prepared us for Africa Free Trade Area, because it has removed so many requirements. You can do online registration, you can do virtual meeting, virtual JGM, you don't have to have more than one director, you don't need secretary. I mean, you can't believe all these things are happening in our life. How many years, when was the last update? How many decades ago? So everybody knows what the problems are. The security issue has actually accounted to decimating the economy. That's why we have so many people flying out of the country. That is capital flight. But we cannot ignore the opportunities that are being created for us to rewrite the history of our economy.
Professor Kanife, thank you very much for your elaborate contribution. I want to return to the Honorable Minister of Finance. I know Professor Kanife and distinguished Senator Sabe, you've talked about a number of points in the administration's governance of the economy. Back to the Honorable Minister of Finance, if I can see her on the screen, that will give an indication right there. Honorable Minister, listening to the various programs, projects, ideas, and all that, there is the unmistakable conclusion that a lot of thinking and planning goes on in the management of the economy. Let's just talk about style, for instance. As I said, you've been around in this administration for 6 years, Minister of State, and then, of course, became Substantive Minister of Finance. Just give us a sense of the style of Mr. President in the management of the economy. And for you in particular, how are you able to still calm in the midst of all the storms that we face from time to time?
Well, how will I explain the style of Mr. President other than that he's an exceptional leader? I said earlier on, he gives directives and gives you authority and actually gives you a free hand to implement the directive. So all he wants is results. And I'll give you an example. When we were going to develop the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, my colleague at that time, Senator Odo Odoma, the Minister of Budget and National Planning, had sought to find out what Mr. President would want to see in the plan. So he said he wants us to grow what we eat and consume what we produce. And that was all. So that to us meant that we had to make sure that we have agriculture and food security, that we have to develop manufacturing and also support micro, small, medium enterprises so that they can grow and increase productivity in the economy. It also means we must produce power, and there must be a physical infrastructure that enables businesses to operate without huge cost. It meant several things. So he gives you a directive that is very basic, but the more you think about it, it just keeps growing on a daily basis. Such directives just continue to grow. And then he says things like, you have a national crisis, economic crisis. And he said, Minister of Finance, make sure you always pay salaries and that you pay pensions and that we continue to invest in major infrastructure, including roads, rail, airports, and grow the power sector, even if we have to borrow. He sometimes cracks a joke and says, I have a wide shoulders as long as borrowing is concerned, but where the borrowing is for major physical infrastructure. So Mr. President is very, very supportive. He's very firm in his directives, and he's actually very consistent. He will tell you the same thing again, which means when he gives you a directive, it's not by chance. You have an interaction, he gives you the same directives again. And he gives you the free hand to implement these directives. As for how I have been coping, I will say by the grace of God, but also by being focused. The challenges are multifaceted, and the economy is a large one. The Nigerian economy is still the largest economy in Africa today. And it is only the Nigerian economy that went into recession and exited within one quarter. Very little credit is being given to us in terms of the quality of work that we've been doing. If you look around you across the country, we have never had our infrastructure developed to the level at which it is today. It's not by a fluke. It's a lot of planning and hard work, and also a lot of careful choices. So a lot of times we make choices and we have to take decisions, and at any point in time for us in finance, somebody will be happy, somebody will not be happy. But we just still stay focused and be very, very patient with everybody, because we know everybody's mandate is important. But where you have resources that are limited, you have to prioritize how you use those resources. So on a regular basis, we check our funds, what is available, what are the things that are lined up that we have to do, and we make choices. And we make sure that the choices we make, they're defendable anywhere, and that those are the right choices for the greater good.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister of Finance. Before we go to Senator Sabi, let me dwell a little with you. Professor Ken, you talked about so many things, infrastructure, agriculture, and how lots of other sectors that really were really positive. And I didn't hear you speak about power. And that is talking about, strengthening energy behind production, behind, investors who are willing to come in to really invest, and having to bring down the cost of production, and, how things could be made easier for the producer and the manufacturer in this country. Because the stories are positive, but had there been enough power, it would have been much positive than it is.
No, I mean, I couldn't say everything, given the time constraint.
Yeah.
Now, the issue of power is tied to too many things. One of them is, of course, is resource availability. Let me just tell you one that really annoys me. Why will a country like Nigeria, that is the biggest producer of crude and gas in Africa, be the biggest importer of refined products? Why will over 30% of the scarce revenue that we don't have, forex revenue, be used to pay for importation of petrol and gas, when we have given 75 licenses to people to go and, private sector, to go and do modular refineries? Look, let me tell you this. NNPC is not contributing 114 or 112 billion last month because they said it's being spent on, subsidy. You need only 35 billion naira to build 20,000 barrels a day of modular refinery. It's $75 million to $100 million. That money can build 3 refineries. And it's loan, not consumption. You don't subsidize consumption, for goodness sake. When you subsidize consumption, you can't account for it. And how can you say from 30 million barrels a day suddenly to 93 million barrels? Who is playing who? We have to take a bold decision and say enough is enough, so that you can fund other sectors of the economy. Now, power sector, we also have all the shenanigans going on in the power sector because of inadequate planning. Because you plan to have all this production, but you didn't plan for the gas that was going to go there. Now, let me tell you this. To do a train, you have to bring a plan. And that plan, when you're going for funding, they want to see commitments, forward commitment of about 25 years of the gas. People would have bought the gas. And then if you go and look at the contracts, international contracts, if you fail there, the penalties are in billions of dollars. So you suddenly come and tell them, give me gas, when they have already committed all those. And then you now have a production system that takes gas and then produces it and then gives it to NBET. NBET gives it to discos, and discos pay maximum of 25%. Now, 25% of what has been generated is what comes back to the GENCO. Is it enough to pay for the gas, to pay for the money they borrowed, and all of that, and salaries? So, the misalignments in that sector. Then you began with a Power Act of 1995 that says you can only have one megawatt dollarization. And then from there, they improved and then went to eligible buyer and all of that. Now, you now have a new generation of end-to-end investor in power sector. That's why it's like Siemens coming in here. Deep pockets, and then I can do it from end to end. And then you now liberalize that market. But you still have not sorted out the main lacuna, which is, how can you tell me to be paying electricity bill without giving me a receipt or giving me a meter? And then you have so much tension there. And then there's no incentive for the discos to just go and put the meter. Because let me tell you, the major thing that I was one of those that was considered for the Minister of Power by Jonathan. And I had done my work for 6 months. And I was going to go on my knees to beg, please, don't take this 3 billion you are getting from these people for buying your 49% and then go and use it to pay salaries. Go and borrow money from Central Bank, for goodness sake. Put this money back and tell all the GENCOs and DISCOs, borrow against this and double the network capacity. You will get traction immediately. That 5,000 megawatt will go up to 10,000 megawatt within a year. But for them to have borrowed to their hilt to pay, and then you're killing them to go and find more money to invest, is just a recipe for disaster. And I knew it was coming. And I went and told the minister, Nebo, a day when he was announced, said, Minister, if you don't succeed in getting the president and CBN governor to do this, I will be with you here. In the next 10 years, you will still be saying the same story. And it's just how it played out. How can you? What they will do is that they strip the assets. They will refuse to meter the network. Because when you meter the network, everybody pays only what they have. And if they can't generate, then they can't. So it's just a recipe for disaster. But renewables are coming in. Finance mechanisms, including climate finance, are also being triggered. And I think the future looks a bit brighter. Because with now private sector generating 3 times more than what the public sector generates in energy, this approach and intervention programs supporting the solar programs, all that stuff would open up the space. And that is where I can see anything different happening in the power sector.
Professor Kenny Faith, thank you very much. I'm not sure if we're going on a short break immediately, but so that our director is just informing us now that we're having to take a short break. I would like, when we return from the break, I will get back to the Honorable Minister of Finance to speak on some aspects of what Professor Kenny Faith has raised, and then the National Assembly's role in all of this. Keep watching. That's Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA.
My name is Nancy Oyedia Orom. I'm AIT correspondent. I've been covering the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 the last 1 year. I just took the jab, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, and it was seamless. And I was opportune to take these vaccines with the SGF, the ministers. So I want to use this medium as a journalist for someone who has experienced COVID in the last 1 year. I want to implore media houses, broadcast industries, let's join hands together to propagate the good information out there for people to believe in these vaccines. That's the only way we can have health immunity and also achieve the projection and target of Nigeria come 2022. Well, I must implore all Nigerians to go out there, register on the Primary Healthcare Development Agency website. These vaccines are free for all Nigerians. Go to the website, register. It is free for you and I.
Guess what?
What?
I scored a hat trick today.
Cool!
Wow!
And how did you celebrate?
Just do your hands like this.
And hold your nose like this.
Body odor is caused by germs. That's why you need the new improved Dettol Cool Soap, which protects against 99.9% odor-causing germs with an extra burst of menthol freshness.
Dettol. Be 100% sure.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Life can be very eventful. We curiously expect things to happen, even when we don't know what. Our human nature makes us like and repost lots of information. Some are unverified, inciting anger and hate. Sometimes innocently, other times the urge to break it first. This, in most cases, has caused destruction in many nations.
It's the dawn of a new era on NTA's flagship program, the Sports Parliament, revitalized with lots of varieties, including feedback responses from viewers. Sports Parliament, the weekly sports show that exposes all the intrigues in the Nigerian sports sector and projects an agenda on the way forward for Nigerian sports. On NTA every Thursday at 10:30 p.m., running for 1 whole hour, discussing sports. The parliamentarians are more committed than ever to enlighten the viewers as the Sports Parliament takes it to a whole new level on the floor of the House. Keep a date with the Sports Parliament as motions are moved every Thursday on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, with his gavel to harmonize sports resolutions. The House have it.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Let's return to the Honorable Minister of Finance, who is still with us via Zoom, Hajia Zainab Ahmed. Honorable Minister of Finance, it's obvious from what we've heard and what we have seen that the linkages between the fiscal and monetary authorities, that those linkages have now been very well established and are running, but are still, of course, day-to-day matters to deal with. But a while ago, Professor Kenife was also raising some very pertinent questions, issues. And these are matters that have often engaged observers of the Nigerian economy. Because when you look at the knock-on effect of some of the gaps or the misalignment, then you ask yourself exactly what is happening. And this is why I would like you to also make a pitch here as to what has been done and what could further be done. With regard to properly getting the fiscal and even the monetary consequences clear in the management of, say, our power sector, or if you like, our energy sector, which will incorporate energy, as we know, that's to say, petrol, diesel, and all that, that's DPK, and more importantly, electricity, which is a driver of the economy. It appears that the foundations of these other subsectors remain weak, even with the various plans that you have, the various ideas that you have as the Minister of Finance. How much interministerial collaboration it's ongoing so that we can get out of the consequences of the poor performance, obviously, of this energy sector?
Thank you very much. It's not in doubt that the privatization of the power sector has been very problematic. The intention that was supposed to be the actions or the positive benefits that were supposed to be derived from the privatization did not come the way things were projected to have been, which means there must have been some deficiencies in the way the privatization was done. But having said that, That is what we met on the ground, and what we try to do is to see how we can make it good. In the first administration, the president has put in place the power sector recovery program, which was anchored by the Ministry of Power. And this program had started well, but it kind of lost steam at some point. On the part of the fiscal authorities, we had this very significant financial obligations that has come out of some of the arrangements that we're committed to. So we set about reviewing the PSRP with a view of how to refocus the sector on the fiscal side, and also how to raise fresh financing and infuse into the power sector. In doing that, we redesigned the financing aspect of the PSRP. We approached the World Bank and got approval for a $750 million facility to finance the fiscal gap within the power sector, and a $500 million facility to be unlent and put into the distribution networks. But we also saw the need to improve the discipline, the payment discipline within the power sector. So we set up a joint committee of the central bank and myself. The HEVP, His Excellency the Vice President, is chairing a power sector review program, and there was a subcommittee of payment discipline that myself and the CBN chair. And what we did is we engaged the discos as well as the banks, because each of the discos was highly geared towards one or the other Nigerian bank. And literally, it was like the banks actually owned the discos. So we had to engage the banks in the process. And we put in place a payment waterfall process where for each disco, all the payments that they make are aggregated and paid into the bank where they had their facility. And the waterfall meant the disco didn't have initial access to the funds until payment is made to government for taxes, payment is made to the bank for the facility, VAT is paid, and then the MBET is paid, and then the disco itself is paid. So that's what we mean by a waterfall. So there is a ranking order. And what we saw is that the revenues now started increasing. And more was being realized that government is able to get more funds to be able to settle the generation companies. That means NBET in this case was getting more of the collections to pay more of the invoices from the generation companies. We also saw a significant increase, almost like a 500-fold increase in VAT, which was not visible before in VAT collection. So that is what we have put in place. We have full cooperation from the distribution networks, because they're also benefiting. Even their own collections has improved. When we saw that we had cooperation, we now arranged to have a facility to the business for purchase of meters. So we had attached to this program a meter asset acquisition program. Prior to this, NERC has licensed some meter asset providers, but this also didn't work well. We now found out there were meters that were brought into the country or were planned to be brought and never came, or brought and not cleared. We were able to enable the clearing of those meters by waiving duties and even concessions so that the meters came. Our target is we must have at least 6 million meters within short to medium term, so that customers are metered and they're paying for consumption that they actually need. This program has started. The meters are already have already started coming in. There has been launch of these meters by some of the distribution networks. The meters are provided to consumers at no immediate fee, and then the collection for the cost of the meters is made over a period of 5 years by small deductions from small additions to their monthly bills, so that the investment that the companies made are recovered. So this is improving the performance of the networks. Now we have to look at how to improve the quality of the network itself, and that's where the Siemens program comes in. The president has directed that this program is fast-tracked. We have a commitment made between the German government and the Nigerian government the German government is bringing financing to the Nigerian government with one of its companies as the EPC contractor, Siemens AG in this case. We've been able to register a limited liability company, and already a management is in place, and initial contracts have been signed with Siemens, and very soon we will begin to see the imports of the equipment, which will cover transmission as well as distribution. And also there's an aspect for metering within the Siemens network. This Siemens program is targeting in the first instance to increase generation, to increase to increase distribution to 5,000 megawatts. Right now we hover between 3,500 to 4,000, but to 7,000 megawatts, and subsequently to 10 and then to 25. So it's in 3 phases. Phase 1 has taken up, and we've opened LCs for the contractor, and the work will soon begin to be evident for everyone to see what we're doing. But also Professor Ken mentioned the InfraCo. The InfraCo that is going to have a capital base of about 15 trillion naira. One of their major focus of investment is going to be power. Then the PID, the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund, that is being managed by the NSIA, which has been in place also since 2018, also has the Mambila Power Project as one of the major projects that has been assigned to the PIDF. The Mambila Power Project has been delayed significantly because of some legal issues. We hope it will be resolved soon. The project has been redesigned and it has been rescoped. We hope that very soon the legal issue will be resolved so that we can proceed with conclusion of the financing from China Exim, and then that also can start. And the NSI is also going to be investing its own funds into the Mambila Power Project once we are able to sort out the legal issues.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Haji Zainab Ahmed. Senator Sabi Abdullahi, you are from a state that prides itself as a power state. And from the information we've been getting in the past 1 to 3 years, Niger has not been getting a lot of power as such to really match up with that name, even in the face of so many power plants it has. You have a lot of people you are representing, and of course they must have been talking to you about this power issue and how it can be ameliorated. And as I said to Professor Ken, it's a general fact that electricity drives the economy. And if you can get that right, we'll be able to at least move it to whatever level we want in this country. At the National Assembly, you've heard the minister speak about efforts of the government. How worried are you at the National Assembly about this power issue and what is being done about that?
Well, thank you. Let me go straight to the point because I can see we are running out of time.
Yeah.
The National Assembly is deeply worried. And I think as at the last count, we've had the Senate Committee on Power, of which I've been a member since the 8th Assembly. We've had to investigate the issue of power sector, I think like about 2-3 times or so. I think the last one was when we had a summit on very critical pillars like the security, power, agriculture, and solid minerals. And the recommendation coming out of that, we've already passed to the executive. Now, I remember vividly when we came in the 8th Senate and we were asked to investigate the power sector with what is happening. The impression we got was Nigerians have been scammed with the privatization of the power sector. A lot of fraud was conducted as far as we saw what was happening. Because, for example, like Prof was saying, you sold the distribution to some companies. And as we were told, that the basis of selling was companies that came with the best strategy to reduce what they call the aggregate technical, commercial, and collection losses, the ATC and C, which is the basis upon which you can gauge the performance of a power sector. Now, this thing has been privatized. And let me come down to the level of the layman that we represent. What are you expected to see? If you take a neighborhood, you have transformers, you have wires, and all kinds of things. what people will remember is incidents where, for example, either rodents or something, or even trees, fell on any of these facility, and the entire power trips off. During that period, what happens? You are losing your revenue. Because it's expected that by the selling of that, if the smart meters are there, power will be reading as people are using. But since you don't have that, every other person is in darkness. And it is exactly what informed people to begin looking for generators, because it may take the power company like 3, sometimes even 2. In fact, I've experienced where 3 months, they couldn't restore a single transformer in the neighborhood. So are they competent to do that? That's what the power sales says. But they are not doing it. And I believe what I'm saying now, even in Abuja, that I consider a mature market, you go to some neighborhoods, they have simple transformer issue. The power discos are not able to fix it. So I think this is, there are, like you said, there were a lot of misalignment when these things were sold. And to our mind, we have made a lot of recommendations, even in the last Power Summit. And I think those recommendations have found favor with the executive in terms of some of the things that you've heard from the Honorable Minister. Now, coming to the issue you raised, of course, I'm from Niger State. I represent Niger North Senatorial District, where we have Kanji Hydropower Station, for example. And I will tell you, apart from New Busa and some few villages, our people are in total darkness. I have more than 5 local governments that 90% of them are in total darkness. They've never experienced electricity.
Never?
They've never. Because where did they have it? They don't have it. They don't have even any pole. But what is happening now is many of them, of course, society is not, static. He talked about the renewables, the solar. Many of them have found favor in solar. You go to some villages now, that's what they've gone into. But like he said, because there is no integrated action in terms of looking at even like the exercise he has tried to describe, maybe perhaps we're also losing. So I think, to my mind, the state, for example, even Mina, there were protests some months back because they are getting barely 5 hours. So maybe it's just a function of the way the power sector is being organized. And I think it's high time we begin to look at those you take resources from should be benefiting. That is justice. So it is right if we say, as far as Niger State is concerned, there is a lot of injustice being done to our people with respect to the issue of power, because you've described it, we're the power state, and yet we don't have power.
Okay, Senator Sabi Abdullahi, let's return to the national table.
Yeah.
And on the issue of energy that Professor Ken Ife raised, and an aspect of which the Honorable Minister of Finance addressed.
Yes.
Again, I know that we're getting pressed for time, but we can see the interconnectedness. Here, for instance, talking about refined petroleum products. We know that the PIB probably now is the longest existing bill in the National Assembly. We have heard that it might be a silver bullet to help us solve a number of these issues, but by the time we begin to unpack the consequences of what we see, our inability to refine petroleum products, the fact that if today you say, look, take out subsidy, assuming there is still subsidy, and fuel prices go up, you can see the knock-on effect almost immediately on prices and thereby inflation. And then, of course, the fact that people have less disposable income. What is the expectation, or rather, what should Nigerians expect from the National Assembly with regard to focusing on this issue, not just merely the umbrella piece of legislation being the PIB? There are core economic matters embedded in our inability to get an efficient energy sector. In this case, I mean oil and gas.
Well, I think for me, let me just quickly say this, that we recognize this particular problem and we're doing whatever we can to see that we have a quick resolution to it. In our legislative agenda, the PIB was one of our top priorities. And as we speak, I will tell you the committee, they only got a breather because we had to go on recess to enable us tackle the issue of the constitutional amendment. But I want to assure you we are resuming tomorrow. We have lined up the issue of the PIB, and we are working in such a manner that we are learning from the past experience. All the issues that made it very difficult for us not to be able to get the PIB passed, we are trying to make sure they're all resolved. And I want to assure you very soon, Nigerians will heave a sigh of relief on the fact that finally, after so many years, the National Assembly will be able to pass this PIB. And like you said, there are other elements that are tied to the efficiency of the sector, and we're also looking into them, because the environment for an investor to operate in the oil sector requires that you have certain stability in terms of either your laws, if they are out of date, and I think we are fine-tuning all of this, just like we did with the Finance Act. We have also touched on so many of these aspects, because even in the Finance Act, the aspect of the taxation, we have tried to clearly align and make sure that there is no duplication, so that to the operators in this sector, they are very clear as to what the taxation is and how it is going to affect their operations. So I think we are not lying on us as far as this issue is concerned. We are trying our best, and I believe that as far as I'm concerned, for example, the PSC was supposed to have been reviewed more than 20 years ago. Nothing happened. Okay. And when we came on board, we said, no, we have to do it as a national duty. Right. And I think we did that, and everybody is also already seeing the impact on the economy.
Oh, that's great. Congratulations, Senator Sabi. Congratulations, National Assembly.
Thank you very much.
Nigerians have been following us on this program. Of course, some tweets have come in. We'll try to go through them at least before we round up. Let's get started with Usman Banu Kantu, who said, for the layman, when there is high cost of living, then the economy is not well. And when there is low supply with high demand, the inflation is bound to happen. So in insecurity, that is, challenges in the last 2 years have been affecting the economy, and the only way out is to tackle the vices squarely.
Akeju Olagbaju says we have exited ERGP, which is a medium term, and currently we are on the ESG, that's ESP, Economic Sustainability Plan, which is short term. My advice is that the Minister of Finance should roll out a new medium term plan urgently.
And Dele Jackson Solomon says the need to reevaluate the achievements of the current administration in Nigeria through the lens of the economy and the security is sacrosanct. President Buhari and his government must work harder to improve the economy, nothing more.
Chris Simeon, to prevent another economic recession, the federal government should come up with a vibrant economic policy that will beef up our fortunes.
And lastly, Ibrahim Tudu-Wan says, if the federal government's economic sustainability programs like Empower, housing programs, survival fund, SME support, youth investment, and other national agri loans are not executed to the latter, we may nosedive into recession again. I think God forbid that, really.
All right. Well, that's the much that time allows us to accommodate for to this edition of the program. Honorable Minister of Finance, as you very well know, we always call on you from time to time. You were with us exactly a week ago, along with other ministers, discussing the outcome of the Paris Summit. Today, of course, we have kicked off with the evaluation of the economy under President Buhari in 6 years. Obviously, we haven't touched on several other aspects. So we'll be returning to this in the course of the week to actually discuss impact, real sector, and all of that, and what is relevant, and citizens' responsibility as well in efficient management of our economy. On that note, Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Hajia Zainab Ahmed, would like to appreciate you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Okay. Also here at the studios, distinguished Senator Sabi Abdullahi is the Deputy Chief Whip of the Senate. Thanks a lot for being our guest this morning.
Well, thank you, but before I step down, let me also use this opportunity to say...
You don't have the time, but
yes,
very quickly.
Just a quick one. Yes. Because the Honorable Minister of Finance, I think we have to commend her. One thing that I just want to mention with respect to this commendation is the fact that in our workings with her, what I've been able to assess is that she's very, very disciplined.
Oh, that's good.
That singular word,
Without a doubt.
if all Nigerians can become very disciplined in what we do, I think the result will be far, far greater than what we're dealing with. I thought I should just put that so that we encourage her to continue to do more.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Senator Sabi Abdullahi. I hope that the Honourable Minister had not hooked off from the conversation. If she had that commendation, that should, of course, be very heartwarming for her. Thank you. And then also development economist, Professor Kenny Faye, always a delight having you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
As I said, there are many areas still for us to cover so that we have a sense of where we're coming from, where we are now, and then where we are headed. We know that Nigerians talk about their spending power today and pressing economic issues, but of course, when you listen to the frameworks and what is rolling, you can begin to see how you get a fit into all of that. So that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Thanks for tuning in. As usual, we're back tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Until then, take care of yourself. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Yusuf Madabusuma. Thank you so much for watching. See you tomorrow.